Welcome everybody to another edition of First Person, again sponsored by the Unity National Bank with offices in Troy, Piqua, and Tip City. As we remind you all the time, see the difference a community bank can make in your life. Convenient services, great people, and of course, the locations around the county that make banking easier for you. Again, sponsors of First Person on PressProsMagazine.com. Tell them you appreciate it. Our guest today is a guy that, as you can see behind us, we're at Wright State University for the annual OHSAA Volleyball State Finals, but the gentleman with me is decidedly a football guy. He's Jim Lippincott, former head coach at MARION Local High School, was at SIDNEY a couple of times. I know you spent some time at MOELLER, but I grew to know you, or know of you, with the 20 years that you spent with the Cincinnati Bengals,
right.
With Mike Brown and all the Bengals staffs down there. So
right.
Thank you for taking the time to come up and talk football with us here at the state tournament.
You are quite welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
Well, this is a treat for me. One of the things that I want to open with, Jim, is I want to tie this a little bit to an article we wrote on Monday of this week about the good news of high school football. And I know you're coaching high school football again at Woodward High School in inner city Cincinnati, and we wrote in there this week about the commitment that coaches are making now to try to save football, for the fact that there is so much cultural pressure as to its safety, as to its cost, what kids get out of it, benefit as compared to the amount of hours. It's a 12-month commitment now if you want to play football successfully. And I know you, a guy of your ilk, with your experience, feels very strongly about the good news of high school football, and there's plenty of it.
I think the good news of high school football is I think safety is a foregone conclusion. And I can honestly tell you that I don't teach tackling or block protection any different now than I did 40 years ago. I use the same theories, same philosophies. But I think the good story and the good news of high school football is the education that they get. These kids that play today are no different than the kids that had to play 40 years ago. It's not an end unto itself. It's a means to an end. It's the lessons of resiliency, perseverance, and respect for authority. Those are the things that they should garner from their exposure as high school football players. So few of them are going to go on and play collegiately, and those that do play collegiately, so few of them are going to go play professionally. But the safety part of it, I think coaches, I don't think this is anything new, to be honest with you. I think high school coaches have always been conscious of the safety of it. I don't think it's anything new. I don't think anybody in their right mind would coach kids and not be careful with them. Those kids belong to somebody else.
Yeah, that's true.
And you have to treat them like they are your own.
But I do think there is in the culture today, I think there is a tendency to overlook or underappreciate the men and that are out there. Those coaches there every Friday night. Right. I think it's easy to be taken for granted, like everything else in America.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you 100%.
I want to go back and talk a little bit about people in Mercer County, and there's a lot of them that watch Press Pros and read Press Pros. They're going to appreciate the fact of the 4 years that you were there. And as somebody told me earlier today, you were kind of the bridge between success and ultra success when Tim Goodwin got there in 1990. And talk a little bit about your days as a MARION Flyer head coach.
Oh gosh. My years at MARION were 4 excellent years, and I think about them often. I think about those kids often. The good times that we had, some of the disappointments that we had, I think about that all the time. Their work ethic, how much football meant to them, how hard they competed. I could tell MARION local stories forever. I was young, I was impetuous, and my youth really showed up to me one time. Was Stan had invited my wife and I to dinner here not too long ago, just a few years ago. And some of our players and their wives went with us for dinner. And we were sitting across the table, and the quarterback, who's Frank Griesdorn, and his wife Karen. She was Karen Vehorn at the time, but Karen looked across at me and she said, "Coach, we turned 50 this year." And I looked at Frank and he nodded his approval, and I realized that I wasn't really very old when I was there. And I kept thinking, did I do a good enough job with those kids? Did I know? I wish I could go back now, knowing what I know now, and do it all over again. But I tell you what, my memories of MARION local are strong in my mind. It's like they happened yesterday.
The one thing that I bet you do overlook, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, is that business of being the bridge between success and ultra success of what Tim's done, 9 state titles in 18 years. Tell me a little bit about how you wrap your mind around what he's been able to do with that program.
Well, it is unusual because winning is hard, and maintaining a winning attitude and winning tradition like that is very, very
Making
very,
it look
very
easy
hard.
is even harder.
Yeah, that's right. Tim's dad was a great football coach, and I've always been partial to coaches' sons.
Yeah, Bill.
And so seeing Tim be as successful as he's been, I'm not surprised, because he comes from good stock. But to do what he's done it's mind-boggling what he's done. I had great respect for Jim Judy and Mike McKernan, who preceded me, and then the guy that followed me won a lot of games, and now here's Tim doing this. So the tradition that has been maintained at Marion over the years is breathtaking. It's something that they should be very proud of. But for Tim to do what he's done at the level that he's done it, what amazes me too about him is when he takes on some of these Western Buckeye League teams and just knocks it out of the park. He seems to open every year with a Wapak or a Bell Fountain or something. Maybe I'm not naming the right teams, but I know he is playing people that maybe they shouldn't be playing.
It's always amazed me that it doesn't matter what division he
It
plays
doesn't
in,
make-
5, 6, or 7, it's blocking and tackling,
it
and there's
is.
not much luck. You know, coaches, you guys always say, well, you gotta be good, but you gotta be lucky. Well, he's won 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
Where's the luck?
Yeah, right,
Where's the
right,
luck?
right.
Before I get away from this, I do want to touch on the fact that Bob Trumpy used to say something when he was doing sports talk on WLW. He used to refer to your years with the Bengals. He called Jim Lippincott the Grim Reaper,
Yeah.
because it was your duty with Sam Weich and the coaches there at that time. When a guy got cut, you were the guy that knocked on the door and said, I need your playbook. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, the scout that was there before me, Frank Smouse, he taught me how to do it, and Mike Brown taught me how to do it, and it's really not brain surgery.
No.
I enjoyed doing it myself because I wanted to make sure that the right words were used and that the player was dealt with in the right way. And was it hard? Sure, sometimes. If you had a personal relationship with the guy that you're about ready to cut, that would make it hard. There were some guys that we had to cut in those years that knew it. And as I would stand in the locker room and they would come in the door for work, they could look me in the eye and they just knew it was their day. We had a couple guys that I had to deal with them that when their day came, I would call them at home and maybe we'd meet for lunch and I'd do it there. And we never did it that way. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to make sure that from the team standpoint and the player standpoint that it was done the right way. So I never pulled punches. I tried to be a straight shooter, didn't try to sugarcoat it. I mean, how do you sugarcoat telling somebody they don't have a job anymore?
You're fired.
And it's not something that I dreaded. It's something that I look forward to. It was part of the job. When you have, back in those days, it was 80 players in your camp, and you had to trim it down to 50, 51, 52. People are going to have to go. And they could do the math. Those guys, they seemed to know it. They seemed to know their day was coming. It wasn't. Every team's got the Turk. Everybody's got the Grim Reaper. But it's something that I enjoyed doing because it was done for the welfare of the team.
We opened this talking about high school football. I want to give people an opportunity, and I think this is very impressive. After all your years, you're back in high school right now at Woodward High School.
Right.
Tell people a little bit about the challenge of being at Woodward in the inner city Cincinnati, what that means to those kids.
When I say this, people look at me funny. I want to remind you that I've coached in the state championship game 6 times, and I've won 4 state championships, been a part of 4 state championships. But this year at Woodward was by far the most rewarding season I've ever had, and we only won 2 games. The effort that these kids give is undeniable and unending. The respect that they have for authority. I love those kids to death. Just love them to death. In my home, they're called my little bulldogs. Yeah. And I enjoyed the season very, very much. And if we could have thrown the ball just a little, maybe we'd have won 8 games.
Couple guys from Marion Local told me when you meet Jim Lippincott, he's a Jim. I'm going to tell you, you're about a 5-carat Jim.
Oh, thank
And
you.
a great big old Jim.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that, Brad.
Thanks
No
for having
pun,
me.
no pun intended. That wraps up this edition of First Person with Jim Lippincott, again sponsored by the Unity National Bank with offices in Pickwood, Troy, and Tip City. Remember, again, if you're not satisfied with the bank you have, stop in one of their convenient offices, meet their people, and see if it doesn't make a difference. A convenient community bank in your life. For Jim Lippincott and the Unity National Bank, we thank you again for your support of what we do on Press Pros Magazine each week, and we'll see you next time with another edition of First Person.